Welcome to the program. Now, Nigeria and other countries in West Africa are projected to witness an increase in the prices of staple foods such as rice, maize, millet, cereals, and many more in 2024. In a report jointly published by the Food and Agricultural Organization, World Food Programme, and other organizations, the prices of staple crops such as maize, wheat, rice, millet, and others will increase above the 5-year average price, occasioned by a reduction in production, trade restrictions, global geopolitical factors, and others. The National Bureau of Statistics recently projected that an increase in annual inflation propelled by the removal of fuel subsidies will continue to push prices of staple foods above the average level. It also identifies limited production as well as sustained demand, trade restriction, insecurity, and others as factors fueling the increased food prices. Well, for more on this, I'm now being joined in the studio by the president, he's now saying, of the All Farmers Association of Nigeria, Kabir Ibrahim Faskari, and also by Eke Reginald Nnabue, the chairman, CEO of Sagaso Worldwide Limited. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us. And I start with you, Kabir Faskari. I know you had to say that you're still the president of the All Farmers Association of Nigeria, despite introducing you as former. I know you have just said that it's controversial at the moment, but there's also another group contending to also claim the chairmanship of the group. Let's talk about this cost of pricing for food in Nigeria. A lot of people actually alarmed by the rising cost. I mean, as at the last survey that I did within my newsroom before coming here, I mean, a bag of rice from some of my colleagues said they purchased it for 58,000 naira. And if you ask others and you see the reports from the MBS, you'll see that indeed it looks like we're in big trouble. Are we so much in trouble?
Well, yes, we are. It's very clear that ordinary people cannot buy food. It's not readily affordable to them. So there is a cry, and it's very genuine that there is a problem in the country. But I think what we should look at more than anything is to show up the purchasing power of the naira. This is the major problem. If you go to the market, you will see food items being sold. It's not as if they are not available. But because of the purchasing power of the naira, the prices tend to be very high. This is the reality. Because, you know, if you go to other places, for instance, I was in Addis Ababa last week. I had a cup of tea and water for $7. Now, $7 in Nigeria would do a lot for me. So it's a question of the value of my currency. Yeah. If you mentioned rice at 58, maize is 57 today. And
when you say 57, what do you mean? 57,000 naira per bag?
Per bag for 100 kg bag.
Wow.
Yes. And if you look at cowpea is over 80,000.
That's beans.
Beans, yes. And many other things like potato, like many things, yam, all of these things are very costly. So people are complaining. And farmers are being blamed somewhat, but you should know that there is no farmer that farms or produces everything that they eat. We also buy from the same market as others, as you and others do. So the problem is it affects everybody, and we have to do something as a nation. I know that the president, some time ago mentioned an emergency on food security.
Yeah, declaring an emergency on national food security.
I believe government should do a lot more than it is doing. I participated in the dry season, the flag off of dry season farming in wheat. We did it in Hadejia, and now they are going to do some activities around maize, rice, and cassava in the dry season, and preparations are underway to make sure that we optimize our productivity so that there will be more food on the table. More food in the market for people to buy from. But generally speaking, the situation is very bad in this country. People are crying. There is a lot of challenge in terms of feeding oneself and feeding one's family. So most of the things you are saying are true.
All right, and I'll come to you, Reginald. Talk to us about how the statistics coming out actually, makes people, including those in government, scary, because, I mean, there's a link between food and insecurity. And what exactly should we be thinking about doing as a people, including with our government, to reduce this situation?
Thank you for having me in the studio today. I think that we have, the government have declared an emergency when it comes to agriculture. And that is a very strategic step. But the question is the emergency addressing the emergency itself? Because, you see, it is one thing to provide funds for agriculture, and it's another thing for the funds to be used for what they have been made available for. Now, the rising food cost has two angles to it. Number one, the issue of the availability of naira in the pockets of Nigerians. Because there could be food, but if you don't have money, you will not be able to buy food. So which comes back to job creation. Because of the level of unemployment across the nation, you can see most Nigerians don't have enough money in their pockets to be able to afford food. There's a statistic that just came out that says Nigeria is the second cheapest country on earth to live in. And that's correct. And following Philippines, we share the same level.
I mean, I saw that statistics, and I was laughing myself.
That is actually true. Nigeria is the cheapest. I believe that Nigeria is the cheapest country to live in, to actually live on earth.
In terms of food,
when it comes to food and other things. Okay. But you see, Nigerians ought not to be hungry. There shouldn't be any discussion about us being hungry. Number one, we have the land. Number two, we have the people. Now, what is lacking is the production base, and that has to do with the fact that we are not mechanizing our agriculture. The interventions that the government is providing for agriculture should be able to address the issue of the provision of agricultural implement to farmers. Now, over the past few years, like I said in our last interview, we have been able to create clusters of farmers across the nation. What that does is that it helps the farmers. Individual farmers cannot afford to buy tractors and irrigation systems and all that. But when you cluster them, they become high yield. They become high investment portfolios.
Yeah, I thought that was why we had cooperatives. I mean, and if you create cooperatives within a cluster, it provides the support system for them from government and others.
But you see, the money is not getting to these people. And then two, we shouldn't be giving farmers money. Okay. We should be giving farmers implements. We should be providing tractors. We should be providing irrigation systems. We should be able to farm all year round. We should be able to provide produce the food that Nigeria consumes and Africa consumes, because we can. We have the land in Niger State. We have the land in Kaduna State. We have the land in all the states. Our soils are very fertile. And all we need to do is to mechanize agriculture and make it attractive to the youth. The people are moving from the rural communities and migrating into the cities. The foods are in the rural communities. If you go to rural communities, the foods are cheaper there. But because of the migration of the people from the rural communities to the cities in search of jobs, that's the reason why the food also moving to the cities becomes more expensive. If we reverse value addition to our food production and increase our mechanization, what will happen is that the people will start going back to the villages. And when they go back to the villages, you'll find that the foods are very cheap.
Well, they will only go back to the villages if the villages themselves are secured. Well, I'm coming back to you, Kabir Faskari. Let's talk about how we haven't utilized dry season farming very well. I thought that the Nigerian government had a system, a support system for farmers to ensure that during dry seasons like this, we're able to farm all year round. How come we haven't taken advantage of latest technologies?
Well, the last speaker has hit the nail on the head. You know, a lot of these things are dependent on the willpower or the will of the government to be able to incentivize people to be doing this agriculture all year round. Now, the issue of dry season, if you notice, is in just a few places and just a few crops. But if you want to look at Nigeria as a whole, there are 6 geopolitical zones and there are staples in each zone. If you, for instance, produced rice only in any of the states in the south, some of them don't look upon rice as food. So you have to tackle this issue from zone to zone, and then satisfy the yearnings of the people in that environment.
Like having a comparative advantage.
Definitely, because the idea is you want to have sufficiency in certain competencies, and competencies that are usable or are used in those regions. So if, for instance, you have wheat, you know, I told you we went to flag off the right wheat production. No matter the amount of wheat you produce, there are some states in the country that will feel that wheat is not the commonest food for them.
Yeah,
so you look at all the zones and deal with the staples in those zones. Then you have food security. Food security means eating what you want at the time that you want, and that it is affordable to you.
Exactly.
Because if rice, for instance, is very cheap, and it's in a place where rice is not consumed as a staple, it will just be cheap, that's all, because nobody buys it. But if you look at every zone and address the issues there, then you will have food security. In all countries of the world, I mean, they eat what they produce, and they deliberately produce those things that are staples in those areas. Yeah. This is how to do it.
Yeah, I mean, very interesting development there. But talk to me about how Nigerians are exporting the food that we have out of the country, especially in the north, even without the government's consent. You see loads of trailers coming from Cameroon, from Niger, from Benin Republic, buying food, taking it out of our borders without our government doing so much. What should we be doing when we don't have enough?
Unfortunately, you know, Africa is one market now. You know, we signed up to AFTA, and that makes Africa one market.
Yeah, but shouldn't we feed ourselves before exporting?
No, hang on. Exportation, the classical way, should be channeled through the right kind of channels, and certain payments or tariffs will be met, and that's reality. But when you look at what happens in so many countries, I come from the border of Katsina, is a border town towards Niger Republic.
Yeah.
People might take any of these things out illegally, and they may bring them in illegally, and that is called smuggling. If you don't pay tariffs for taking anything out or in, you are smuggling. And that is what you are talking about.
Yes,
when so many people are
loads of trailers.
So institutions have to work properly. There are people or institutions saddled with taking care of these issues. Okay. If institutions do not work in a society, the society will never progress. In other nations, can you go to any of the borders of the United States, for instance, and take in anything that is not allowed in? Or you go to small places in Europe, like the Netherlands. Can you take anything in that is not registered and allowed to pass officially? So this is what we must do. There are many things we have to deal with in Nigeria to make Nigeria work. The institutions saddled with all activities relating to trade in agriculture must work properly. Movement of people, movement of animals, movement of everything has to work properly. Otherwise, we will always have problems.
Okay, Regina, I had to ask that question because it looks like some of our farmers, it's more profitable for them to actually sell to our neighboring countries than to sell their own food in Nigeria. Shouldn't there be a sort of regulation so that the Nigerian government, either through the Ministry of Agriculture or Customs or whatever, see how we're able to curtail the selling of this food when we don't have enough here? Because, I mean, it's worrisome that farmers will want to sell to foreigners more than they sell at home.
You just like Alhaji just said, the institutions have to work. You know that why that is successful is because the persons who are supposed to be manning our borders to ensure that the processes are followed are the ones that are actually spearheading the movement of the goods and services. And then there's something else that Alhaji has said. We cannot stop our food from going out because the Africa Continental Free Trade Area has come into being. And that presents us a bigger opportunity. Now, it presents us a bigger market. It presents us opportunity to make much more money for Nigeria. But what it means is that we need to increase production. we need to produce more food. The only way we can solve the issue is to make sure that we are producing more than enough for us.
So that means we should produce more for Africa, not just for Nigeria.
We have to produce for Africa. The African Continental Free Trade Area is a game changer. It gives us opportunity to flood Africa with made in Nigerian goods and services. And what that means is that we have to actually, because Nigeria has to lead the AFTA. If not so, the AFTA is not going to be successful. So we need to increase food production. Now, there is something that we began to do recently. Now, we are beginning to identify across the nation all the communities in Nigeria. Myself, Senator Simeon Ajibola has been very, very helpful in what we are trying to do in agriculture. And what we're doing now is to identify all the crops being grown in every community in Nigeria. So we are building a map of Nigeria where if you click on the map, the states will, if you click on the state, it will open up to the local government. And when you click on the local government, it will open up to the communities. Then you can identify the foods being grown. And there we are also creating clusters in those levels so that we can help them produce more food. We are going to give them agricultural implements. We're going to give them tractors. We're going to provide irrigation. We'll give them best seedlings. We provide storage facilities. And then we do value additional source. That is very strategic. The food cost is actually much more as a result of the fact that Nigerians don't have enough money. And if we do value addition to our food at source, at the host rural communities, we will create the jobs there. The youth can begin to earn money at that level. Okay. And when they begin to earn money at that level, everybody can afford to buy food.
Yeah, and I want to also take you up on this issue that I'm saying now. Several poultry farms, for example, are beginning to shut down because of the rising cost of feed. Yes, and then you go to buy eggs in the stores. I mean, the other day I was asking, some people are selling a crate of eggs for like 3,500 to 4,000 naira for something that was like about 1,500 before this government came into power. And people are all linking it up to the naira, the dwindling fortunes of the naira. Talk to me about how the dwindling fortunes of the naira is affecting productivity within the agricultural sector itself.
I was having a conversation on a platform today, and I said to them, the reason why naira is falling is because naira is also falling in the pockets of Nigerians. The more naira Nigerians have in their pockets, the more the value of the naira. And it still goes back to the same thing. Now, there's a farm that we are looking at, by the grace of God, to begin to go into management. The Makoju's farm, late Joseph Makoju, in Osara, in Kogi State. Now, I went to the farm to do an inspection, and I could see what Joseph Makoju did, what he built when it comes to the issue of poultry. There is a hatchery in the farm. The farm can grow as much as 50,000 birds and more. Okay, and then the eggs can come out. But you see, one of the things that is lacking is the fact that we are not sustaining, because Joseph Makoju is no longer there. The farm is no longer operating at optimum. So now we need to look at such kind of facilities and begin to see how we can revamp them and sustain them. And then also there is another aspect we can actually use, because one of the problems that we're having as a nation is that we are not having practical expertise and experience for our agricultural students. Some of these farms have to be a place where we can do practical experiences for our students. The university should connect with them and then be able to have them go there and then put in their knowledge, put in their expertise. What they are studying in the books, they go there and do practical experiences there.
All right, and talking to us about the issues of insecurity in the north and how, for example, it's affecting farmers. I've also discovered that in the southern part of the country, people are no longer farming so much because they are afraid that when they are in the bush, they could actually be kidnapped for ransom and all of that. How are farmers actually raising these issues with government officials? I mean, you have the Minister of Agriculture, Minister of State for Agriculture. Are these people in sync with people like you who are the real farmers?
Of course, we are on all committees on... you know, there was the Ministry of Defense Committee on security or insecurity, taming it. We did tours. We looked at various opportunities that are there. People will have to be able to talk even if their children are involved in some of these issues. Now, insecurity or bringing about security is everybody's problem. It should not just be left to government. Government itself cannot provide it in all the places that we have. Certainly, for a very long time, since Boko Haram, a lot of things have happened. Kidnappings and banditry have taken place in the northwest, in the north central, even here in Abuja, we are not quite safe. Now, in the south, there are some incidents there where people were kidnapped and all that, and some of them may not be the kind of problems that we have in the north. But generally speaking, I mean, it's only logical that when your neighbor's house is on fire, that you bring in water to see if you can tame it so that it doesn't reach your own house. So people in the south, out of a genuine fear, might not want to go deep into the forests to be able to produce anything for fear of what could happen. Now, but generally speaking, the issues are manifold. And we saw a rise in terms of insecurity at the advent of politics. So before politics, things were not as bad. Now, our youngsters are taking drugs. They are the footmen of politicians. Some of them help the politicians to get into positions of responsibility, and then they are abandoned. So they take up banditry, kidnapping and all that. You can just see what happens. If you pay a kidnapper 1 million for kidnapping your son, why would he work if kidnapping brings in these huge sums of money?
Yeah,
so
many
people are getting into it because of the influence of drugs, and also it's the easiest way to make money now in Nigeria, and especially because there is so much corruption. So much corruption, because in other places, if you kidnap a person and say you want ransom, nobody pays you. You want to kill the person will die anyway. Whether you are killed by anybody or you die in an accident or anything, is still death. So, but the incident that we see that is very disheartening is that people with a lot of money, and especially politicians, have their wards or relations or whatever kidnapped, and they pay large sums of money, and you wonder how they even get this kind of money. So the problem is this: if you kidnap a person's children and the person has got no money, will they be able to pay?
Of course, that'll be.
They will not pay. They will not be able to pay. It's like telling a cripple to jump, even in the army. Can they jump? Can a cripple jump? Right. So we have to look at it as a problem for every Nigerian. We should loathe corruption. If you are a corrupt person and you display wealth, ill-gotten wealth, we should be able to say, no, we don't want to see this. We are not interested. We are not impressed by it. Otherwise, there will always be these problems.
All right. Kabir Ibrahim Faskari is the president of the All Farmers Association of Nigeria, though in a controversial way. I mean, you have factions now. I just hope you settle that issue very quickly.
There is nothing to settle. We are in court. We are in court. The court will settle it.
Because, I mean, I don't know why you should be having a crisis within your association, but, I mean, it's normal with human endeavors. And Nnabue Reginald is the chairman and CEO of Sagaso Worldwide Limited. We must thank you so much for some of the innovations you're going to. And we just hope that the government actually works out a plan. I mean, in the Second Republic, you used to hear of the Green Revolution and all those government programs. But I wonder, I mean, we hardly hear of those agricultural revolution programs this time around. We just hope that the government will listen to people like you. We must thank you so much for coming to join us on the program.